Welcome everyone. Jason here with Skeleton Key Tactical. I'm in Idaho visiting Alien Gear Holsters, and we're talking about disassembling and reassembling pistols. My background is I'm a 20 plus year Army vet, did about 21 years in special operations, 2nd Ranger Battalion up in Tacoma, Washington, and then I was at Fort Bragg at the Tier 1 unit out there as an operator for about 17 years. So let's get to this disassemble on our pistols here real quick. When you go to take your pistol apart, generally speaking, there's the general reference that people use is you field strip your pistol. And what that means is it's an old military term for the larger component parts that you can afford to take apart in the field, but not down to the disassembly portion where you're going to risk losing a bunch of small springs and small pins. So we're going to separate the slide from the frame, take the barrel out, and take the action spring out. And depending on the pistol, there might be one or two other things you do. And also depending on the pistol, you might have a barrel that's fixed and doesn't remove, in which case you wouldn't take that out. But let's go through a couple of examples here real quick. Probably first and foremost, probably the most prolific one on the market today is the Glock. They all disassemble the same, regardless of caliber. We're gonna, obviously, with all of these, we're gonna check and make sure they're clear, which we did before we started rolling the camera. So I've got cleared chamber, cleared breech face, cleared magazine well. I'm gonna let the slide go forward, and to disassemble the Glock, we have to drop this, squeeze the trigger. And once that's done, we're gonna keep your thumb wrapped across the beaver tail, top end of the back strap here, and grab the slide with your other fingers. If you're left-handed, you could do it the same way. I use my right hand here because it's a little bit stronger. And then there's one sort of square-shaped pin that's on both sides. This is one pin that drives all the way through, and we have to grab it on both sides and pull it down at the same time that we're holding this back. You just come back until you can hear that little click right there. Pull this down equally on both sides, and then let the slide forward. And this, pulling this down on both sides, will remove the tension that holds the slide in place. And once we get to this point here, we simply slide it off the end. So now we've got our frame separate by itself, and then we've got our slide where we're going to just depress the back end of the recoil spring right here, take it out of that. There's almost always a little detent right here, shelf that the spring sets on. We're going to pull that back, pull it out, set it down, and then the barrel will come out. You can come to the top where it locks up with the slide and just push it a little bit. If you're holding it horizontal like I should have been, you push it a little bit like this, you lift it out and pull it out back to the rear. So you've got your slide, your barrel, your action spring, and your frame. And that's field stripped right there on the Glock. Let's look at a couple other versions. We've got an M&P shield here. Pretty much a similar process to what we just saw, except for on this one, we're gonna lock the slide to the rear. Obviously, we're gonna clear it first, just like we did. Lock the slide to the rear, and then this forward lever all the way to the front, we're gonna rotate this clockwise, starting from the back end where the serrations are. We're gonna push down on it, and you can see where it went from a 3 o'clock to a 6 o'clock position. And then once we get to that point, we're gonna pull the tension off, and it's gonna start to slide forward. To get it off the gun, we have to take the tension off the slide and pull the trigger to get the slide to come off the front end. There's our frame. And then just like on the other one a minute ago, I've got my action spring, comes out just like that. Barrel. And again, we're holding it horizontal. I'm just going to push up a little bit on the barrel from here to slide it forward, and then I can simply lift it out. And that's my 4 major components right there. Next, we're going to move on to the SIG. In this example, it's a 365 subcompact. Very similar to what we did a second ago with the M&P. Slides locked to the rear. We're clear through the slide. We're cleared in the chamber. When it's locked all the way back, we're going to take the same forwardmost lever on the left side of the gun, rotate it from 3 o'clock down to, in this case, it goes a little bit past 6, almost to 7. And then take the tension off, and it's just going to simply slide forward and come off the gun until the camera's running. There we go. So frame, and then the same almost exactly what we did before. Put a little tension on the spring, pull the spring out, horizontal with the slide, pop the barrel forward and lift that out, and then you've got your slide. And that's the long and short of all that. Once you get the slide off, they pretty much all come apart the same way. On some other pistols, every once in a while, you've got to, like I said, the barrel doesn't come off, and that, some of these, the barrels are affixed to the frame. So when you take the slide off, you're going to have something that looks like that, where it's fixed and it doesn't detach. The slide will come off, and a lot of those, they have a similar takedown feature on the side as we just talked about, and then they have some cutouts on the slide so that when you get that takedown feature in the right place, you pull the slide back about 1/4 of an inch and the slide actually lifts off. It levers off like this, and and then you catch the spring when it comes off like that. Let's talk about reassembly now and a function check. We'll start with the M&P. Barrel pretty much only goes in one way. When you lift the barrel up, you can only put it in and let it seat in one direction. If you were, for example, to turn this the other way around, okay, it won't go in. You see how that locking block on the bottom there is kind of not in the right place. This doesn't make any sense. So, and you've also got the very painfully evident 9mm, which is supposed to be showing, externally when the gun's put together. You would see that like that. Kind of one way to check that. Almost universally, then, when you go to grab your recoil spring and put it back in the gun, you've got a flat edge, and then on the other side you've got a not flat edge. This spring is designed so that this piece right here will slide back while the slide is moving rearward. And if you remember that the flat side fits up against the lug on the barrel, so we slide this in here until it seats in a little cutout, and then I'm going to block the view from the camera just a little bit here, and that seats right in there like that. So when we work this thing on the gun, it sticks through the front end like that, and I'll show you that when we do the function check here in just a second. Now we're going to take this complete, roll it over, and then we go, back end of the slide to the back end of the gun. They slide on from the front end. It goes in. Once we're mated, we pull it all the way back, and usually it will, when you do that, the takedown pin right here will pop back out where it's supposed to. And if it doesn't, then we're just gonna, give me 1 second here. We'll rotate it back in by hand, put it in place, release the slide, and then we should be good to go. The function check is we cock the gun, squeeze the trigger, it should go click, hold the trigger to the rear, work the action one more time, and then release for a click and pull it for another click. Almost universally, that should be what you should get. Very similar thing on the Glock. Slide, barrel, can only go one way. You can tell when it goes in because it slides back and it clicks in place. It's flush along bottom as we're looking at it, but this is actually the top if it was on the gun. And then we're going to take the spring, the flat edge goes to the rear toward where the barrel lug is, and then we're just going to fit this piece right here in the cutout. It has a little detent on the inside where that piece slides through, and then put just enough pressure on the spring to get that to pop in place. The flat piece should go right on that shelf right there that's cut out for it. Then we grab our slide. And again, rear sights go to the rear. That's the back of the gun. We're going to slide it on from the front end all the way back, nice and lined up. And on the Glock, it's simply bottom it all the way back out and let go, and it locks itself in place. Function check, same thing we did before. Trigger squeeze, hold it to the rear, work the slide, let go for a click, and pull again for another click. Thanks for watching.